1993, the year we went retro.
1993 was an incredible year. Oh my God, it was lovely.
The sounds of yesteryear made Britain start to swing again.
It was just before Britpop. You could feel it was coming.
Generation X were coming into their own, and the kids were all right.
You know, we work hard, but we play hard as well. And we don't care. We just go crazy.
It's good not to fit the norm. Be your true self. Why do we all have to fit in that box?
We was just being ourselves. You know, we weren't troublemakers or nothing.
Techno, 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 techno. But that costs extra, you know it, right?
There were no jobs, so we had to get creative.
Music gave us a voice. Music gave us identity.
Slacker chic was in as we went elegantly slumming.
There was a liberation, a freedom of spirit to try something different, to be something different.
And every Thursday, whatever your groove. Yes, whatever your groove. It was brought to you by Top of the Pops.
You want your granny, you see your neighbours. You want to go, we've arrived, we're on Top of the Pops.
It always had that aura that it was Top of the Pops, and somehow was special.
'93 started as it was about to go on. Familiar flavours with a 90s zest.
Duran Duran, this is Ordinary World on Top of the Pops.
The year began with a literal beacon of hope.
The Prime Minister welcomed the new year by lighting a beacon to mark the coming of the single market to the European community.
But for the first few weeks, the recession was grinding on. Unemployment topped 3 million. In Bosnia, war raged.
The killing continues in a war the rest of the world is unable or unwilling to understand.
Where is the life that I recognize? But I won't cry for yesterday.
America had a new start with a new president. And the First Lady of Pop, Whitney Houston, was still number one.
We'll always love you.
But a track was coming to give the year a kick up the doldrums, as the Top of the Pops Pleasure Dome at Elstree Studios welcomed Sophisto Ravers 2 Unlimited from the Euro club scene.
I was a clubber. I used to go out to parties in Amsterdam on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I bumped into Ray many times.
In Amsterdam, of course, the IT. You probably heard about the IT, which was the biggest gay club in the world that everybody around the world knows. And that's why I started to go out to, because it was a big scene, and you meet Grace Jones up there, and it was such a scene.
It's him for me and me for him.
That time, Holland, we always had good rappers, a lot of rappers, and Belgium was really famous for doing the house music.
In 1991, Belgian producers Jean-Paul de Costa and Phil Wilde took their instrumental white label track Get Ready for This and felt it needed lyrics. The shout-out reached Ray.
Y'all ready for this?
I heard the track Get Ready for This, and he said, would you like to write a rap on it? So I went back. A week later, I got a TDK tape, the cassette tapes, and I got the track, and it was just at my dad's house, and it was just writing on it. Because I never wrote a lyric before. I thought it was fun to do, so, and it just came like this.
Get down with the sound, house on the ground, freeze when I squeeze, drop to your knees. You must have been out in here to stay, ready to take you around the way.
Ray's rap brought the track to life, and he also wrote a vocal for a girl singer.
And And then I got a phone call. Do you want to get involved in a project? We have this song and it's, okay, I'm on it. You know? Yes! They didn't even finish talking.
Get ready for this, mind your own business.
She's a great singer, good look also. And we both half black, half white, so it was a nice combination.
All the DJs were playing it and nobody knew what it was. And then Pete Waterman picked it up for his show, Hitman and Her, and he was like, what is this?
Yeah, so he picked it up and like within a month it came into the UK charts. It was straight into #2.
The Dutch duo were going great guns.
Are y'all ready for this?
But this year,
In 1993, we went to a next level. Watch this.
We always had this demo of No Limit. Dang, 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 dang. And we really didn't know what we had to do with it.
It was one of the songs for the album that was like just lying there, didn't get any attention. And because I wanted to write so much and I didn't have that chance, didn't get the chance up to then, I was like, okay, when nobody is paying attention to this song, then I'm gonna write on it, I'm gonna pitch it, and I'm gonna just make it happen. And what I wanted, it was something like Gypsy Woman from Crystal Waters.
You know, la da dee, la da da, la da, you know.
No Limit, the lyrics, it just came to me. It was just fun, and I wanted to have something catchy. But I originally wrote, no limit, we'll reach for the sky, no valley too deep, no mountain too high. So it was more soulful. And then the producer went, no, it should be, no limit, we'll reach for the sky, you know. I wrote my parts, the melody and the words, and Ray did the rap.
I think we wrote in 1 hour or something. But at that time in the UK, with Pete told myself, Ray, we're not going to get rap on the radio. I mean, he had Fresh Prince doing his rap, but it was more fun, and it was like, you know, it was no gangster stuff, or it was more like, you know, light kind of thing, funny. So they decided for the UK market, they're not ready for the rap yet. So it's only in the UK that we had different versions, but for the rest of Europe and the world, it was always like, yeah, the vocal versions.
It was not so nice for Ray. Even though he only said techno, the people loved him. I mean, he was hunk of the month, he was on covers. In the end, it didn't matter. The people loved us.
as the single scorched up the British chart, 2 Unlimited had a guaranteed spot on the nation's favourite music show.
Live from Auschwitz, eyes down for a full house on the show with all the music and then some. 2 Unlimited. This week's highest new entry at number 4.
Top of the Pops was something holy. If you are at the top of the Pops, I mean, you made it. you made it.
And you have to be on top of your game. But the audience always really helped us because as soon as we started walking, they would be like, "Wah!" And then the energy in the room.
Let me say yeah!
I think maybe they had 100 people, 150 max. But the amount of noise they made and the energy that those people brought, it looked like you were in a stadium, you know? And everybody was grooving and, you know, just jumping to the track.
And then after 1 or 2 weeks, we knocked off Whitney Houston from the #1 position.
And Whitney Houston didn't make it to Valentine's Day. She's at 2.
You know, and everybody was like, yeah, kick her off #1, kick her off #1. And then we finally did it. We kicked Whitney Houston from the #1 spot.
Congratulations to Holland's 2 Unlimited, who once again has successfully mixed a few techno and rave vibes. Their very first #1, No Limit. And you can whack the volume up on this one.
We were like, what? I mean, #1 in England. Who dares even think about that?
I think we stayed there for 5 weeks. And I think after 4 weeks, people were like, yo, get No Limit off the #1 spot. We're tired of this shit.
The punters may have loved it, but the music press gave 2 Unlimited a rough ride.
But they did call us too untalented. no, no, there's no lyrics.
No lyrics, yeah. And I got pissed off about it.
I see the humor of it now. But when you're 22 and you're like, oh, but I wrote this song with all my heart, and then people say there's no lyrics, you feel offended, you know. But our crew in England would always say, listen, this is great publicity. Embrace it.
No haters could hold back the massive impact No Limit made on a global scale.
And if you talk about 93, I'm a big soccer fanatic, but you're playing in the Premier League. Well, when No Limit came about, we suddenly were in the Champions League. You know, and No Limit was #1 in 34 countries at the same time.
And No Limit is still making us bounce today.
UK audience, they are mental. They go wild. They really want to party. When I perform in England, I sometimes sing that there's no lyrics, and then the audience cracks up.
And I see it now, you know, with the crowds getting younger and younger, because for them it's retro.
And a lot of artists look back on their music and they're like, oh, I don't want to sing that song anymore because I sang it so many times. But for me, it's just such an explosion of positivity. All these years later, I've been to so many things. I've had cancer 3 times, but I'm still here, and it became my credo. And we are limitless. We are limitless beings. We can't reach for the sky.
2 Unlimited, third week at number 1. What a brilliant show we've had.
The headlines kept getting grimmer.
2 people have been killed and at least 40 others injured in 2 bomb explosions in Warrington.
And we hankered for some vibes of peace and love.
But what I really want to know is, are you gonna go my way?
There was a need for nostalgia to keep us cushioned from the day-to-day. Lenny Kravitz conjured a Hendrix psychedelic groove. And St. Etienne caught the happy, hippie Carnaby Street craving in the air and gave us a breath of pure pop.
St. Etienne started as a duo. We were going to get different singers in for each record, which was kind of like the thing that people were doing in 1990. We did a couple of records with a rapper called QT. It was great. She had an amazing voice, very sort of husky.
Every lyric, flying high like a dove is the Lord. Sprinkles his love.
And Sarah Cracknell sang on our 3rd single, which is called Nothing Can Stop Us. We wrote the backing track with her in mind. She's absolutely one of my favourite singers. She has quite a distinctive English accent as well when she sings, which certainly in 1993 wasn't that common. Nothing Can Stop Us was very sort of 60s based, had a Dusty Springfield sample, and we thought Sarah's voice was perfect for that, and we just got on really well, so we then became like a trio after that. The 3 of us had grown up in the home counties. Me and Pete were from Croydon and Sarah was from Windsor, so I think we'd always looked to London as somewhere we wanted to live, and when we moved there in the late 80s, early 90s, we formed the group fairly soon after. So I think at that point we were still very much in love with London and the notion of swinging London, 60s London. We all love pop music in all shades, dance music, a lot of 60s pop as well. But also, we didn't want to sound retro in any way, we wanted to sound modern.
The 60s spirit ensorcelled every aspect of pop culture in 93. Our fashion was as slinky as the soundtrack.
I remember we recorded You're in a Bad Way at the end of the day. It was just written about going out on a Saturday night and trying to get someone to come out and trying to get them out of the house. Not stay at home watching telly and whatever would have been on then.
Get your kicks watching Bruce on the old generation game.
I mean, I think, I'm probably not on my own, but like when I used to go out on a Saturday night, I'd always feel like anxious beforehand. I don't know why, like you're going to an interview or something. And then you sort of think, maybe I could just stay in, you get that sort of weird nervous thing. It got A-listed on Radio 1, so it's getting a lot of airplay, and it went in at number 12, I think. we were thrilled, and then we got the call to say we're going to be on Top of the Pops.
Starting with a tune to put a smile on your face and make you feel happy. Welcome to Etihad.
I think I was very nervous. We dressed up, wore a gold lame suit, because that's what you should do when you're in a pop group. But I was so nervous, I just remember like looking at my keyboard thinking, don't play wrong notes, play the right notes, even though you're miming. And of course, no one cared. The music press was very kind to us, and we got like good reviews in Smash Hits and NME and Melody Maker, because we didn't really sort of fit into either particularly that comfortably. We had to sort of create a space for ourselves, I suppose. There were like new people we felt like some kind of alignment with, but we still felt out on a limb, really. At the end of '93, we did some Christmas shows, and Oasis supported us, which is hilarious, looking back, because they were very loud. And I remember like our fans being like pinned to the back of the hall by them, and then we came on and sounded like we were playing all sorts of toy instruments in comparison. We did a tour with Pulp in '93 as well, and Jarvis was clearly like a pop star in waiting. He looked amazing. Britpop was just around the corner. You could feel it was coming. Blur did Modern Life is Rubbish, I think, in '93 as well. It was kind of like waiting to happen, I think.
But for one band, there was no waiting. It was all happening. 1993 was the year Suede's insouciant dark glamour thrilled indie kids and made them the darlings of the inky press. With razor-sharp cheekbones and rapier wit to match, frontman Brett Anderson could out-swagger Jagger. Animal Nitrate landed top 10 at number 7, but when the time came to knock 'em dead on Top of the Pops...
We were due to have Suede playing live on the show tonight, but unfortunately Brett is not feeling too well. Brett, what's the matter?
I think my voice has deserted me. I've been singing too violently.
Shame. They did have better luck next time. It wasn't just the beginnings of Britpop that played with nostalgic sounds and styles to conjure up cooler times. One particular sample from a 1960 Jamaican classic heralded the sound of 1993.
You know, Carolina was originally done by the Folk Brothers, and it was on the Prince Buster label. As a kid growing up in Kingston, there were these fetes that they used to do at school, which is like parties, big parties. And they used to play the original Carolina. The kids would sing, because you couldn't tell what the original Folk Brothers did on that part. So we would say, "Oh Carolina," which is a Jamaican curse.
Naughty Shaggy. Moving to Brooklyn, Shaggy quickly made his mark in the melting pot of their music scene and teamed up with DJ Sting International to cut some records.
Sting International has shown me this Peter Gunn sample. Ding, 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 ding. I thought it was amazing. I was like, wow, this is, I'm a young kid. I didn't know. I actually thought he created it, but you know, it was actually a sample. And it was like, ding, ding, ding. I was like, wow, I'm fascinated with this thing. And he put some drums around it, and boom. And immediately came to my mind was, "Oh Carolina." I was like, this would be perfect. I'll have everybody in Brooklyn cursing on this record.
But in 1993, rude lyrics meant no radio play, so Shaggy had to rethink the swears.
So I had to do a clean version. So I changed the "Oh Carolina, Palava, jump on bronze, oh Carolina, Palava." It just kind of took a life of its own at the same time.
And from Shaggy's first Top of the Pops, the nation had an education in dancehall moves.
I remember being told that, because I'm in my regular show, there's an old saying that the spine don't jerk, nothing else works. So, I'm always gyrating the lower half, you know what I mean? And I was told to tone that down a little bit.
Carolina, come bubble for me. Oh, watch how she groove. Carolina.
The UK's historical love of reggae from the 1960s onwards meant Oh Carolina was familiar, and the record rocketed.
It's a partial cover. I used the melody, but I changed almost all the words in the verse. It was a freestyle. The whole thing was a freestyle.
She rock, watch how she shock. Body it a swing like me grandfather clock, y'all.
And that vocal, we'd never heard anything like it.
It is my voice. It is my natural voice, but it is also another sound that I have. I have many sounds in my vocals. I used to be in the military, and I used to run and sing cadence. I don't know, but I've been told my CEO wears pantyhose.
Here we go, hold away.
And I really did this type of yeah, because the drill instructors talk to you like that. Hey, boy, come here, boy. Drop and give me 20, boy. They always put a voice on when they're talking to you. So I mimicked them. Hey, boy. Oh, look, don't you eyeball me, boy. I was just like, oh, Carolina.
Well, Carolina is a girl. She dip on top of the world when now she rock her body. And the move just like a squirrel. I said, oh, baby girl. I said, I love how she moves. She does a rock to the rhythm and the rhythm is the move. Oh, you know they go, oh, Carolina.
I just did it because it's a different sound. I didn't know it was going to be a part of pop culture. I was having the time of my life. I was young. I was making money. I had girls, like the most gorgeous girls that I could think of, I would be able to pull. And it was heaven. I was single. Oh my God, it was lovely.
Starting with Sister Sledge, let's get lost in music.
The feel-good factor was vital to those of us living for the weekend. A disco revival rippled throughout '93 as rave fell out of fashion. And we boogied all year in our funky towns as new disco filled the dance floors.
1993 was a high-profile year for people. It was just so exciting, and we wanted to make music. We spent so long trying to get there. What else was there for us to do? Go on holiday. Stay at home. Making music was what we loved and what we wanted to do. People thought if you made music that people danced to, that there was something shameful in it. But it's quite difficult to get people on the dance floor, especially British people.
One night in heaven, one night in heaven. The new album from M People is due for release in the autumn. It's called Elegant Slumming. This is at number 7 from that album, One Night in Heaven.
In '93, British people were flocking to dance floors further afield than the local nightclub. Cheap package holidays meant Brits could head to hedonistic hotspots across Europe, and the new superclubs opening in Ibiza.
I felt that I was part of a movement that was encapsulating a certain type of feeling, and my music was part of that feeling. As a band, we did like to have kicks, and we did love the whole Ibiza thing. I mean, I didn't do Ibiza in quite the same way as some of the rest of the band did, but it was real fun. And it was this thing about enjoying the moment, because you weren't too sure what tomorrow was going to bring. It was a time where we were going through some hardships. Being able to forget your troubles for a while within a club. Lots of people said that they danced incessantly to One Night in Heaven, and that it gave them a feeling of joy.
It wouldn't be a party without M People. This week's highest new entry at number 4.
And the follow-up was a glorious kiss-off that all but topped the chart and became a club classic.
Moving On Up was definitely M People's biggest hit. by far. And it was so different from One Night in Heaven. It showed people that we weren't just about big dance tunes. Some kind of star, just who do you think you are? I wanted to go for a totally different approach, and I didn't know whether that would work. It was a different type of song, and it meant something different to me because it was about empowerment. I think that was the beginning of me revealing who I was through the music, and I was in control. I think especially with women, people want us to be nice, and sometimes being nice is just being honest. I'm gonna be nice and I'm gonna be honest, and this is not working. It wasn't just about finger wagging and the moving of the head, but it was also that I am in my power. I recognize what I have and what I bring to any situation, and if that's not appreciated, then I'll go elsewhere. It was very considered, and people think that you do things and it's coincidence. No, everything I did was very considered, and I wanted to go out there, I wanted to look strong, I wanted to be this strong female, happened to be black and possessed of herself and top of her game.
As the wheel of fortune turned, things were starting to look up. The government declared 3 years of recession over.
The prospects are excellent. Britain is on the up.
The Queen announced that Buckingham Palace would be open for visitors. And Manchester United won the first ever Premier League. And in the chart, East 17 were winning fans with a track that would make your mother blush.
Yeah, it's all about sex. It's all about sex.
The battle of the boy bands got real in 1993 as pop Svengali Tom Watkins propelled his bad boy protégés centre stage.
He tried to say, look, you can't say you got girlfriends, you can't say you smoke. And we was all like, nah, we're going to say we smoke. But we was ourselves, to be honest with you. They didn't tell us how to dress, it was all our own clothes. And I think it worked in our favour. By saying, yeah, we smoke, yeah, girls, yeah, we've got loads of girlfriends, you know.
The rivalry was catnip to the pop press as they declared all-out war between East 17 and Take That.
I think it was orchestrated because, you know, it was like, oh, Take That said this about you. Oh, all right, we'll say that about them. And but really, deep down, we didn't really care what Take That were doing. We was doing our own thing. And we were stoned most of the time, to be honest with you.
East 17 certainly weren't courting the teeny bopper market with Deep. You'd never catch Take That singing such sauciness.
I think a lot of the parents, obviously, when the daughter bought it or whatever, they must have thought, hold on a minute, when they really listened to it. Oh, hold on a minute, you're 16 years old. No, it's going in the bin, that track. No, you can't have that.
The track shuffled loosely up through the chart, and Top of the Pops were faced with how to handle such an overtly sexy song with a family audience.
Here's a typical PG-rated East End love song from their new LP, Walthamstow. Welcome, East 17 and Deep.
Yeah, no one told us what the set was going to be or anything like that. So when we turned up, like we thought, yeah, we look a bit slick with the white suit jackets and stuff. And when we got on set, we was like looking around thinking, what is this? And I remember seeing like, it was all like tiled, with a ladder like at the top. Hold on a minute. At the bottom of a swimming pool, what is going on? We got this cool track, and they've placed us in the bottom of a swimming pool. It was like, it's so random.
After Deep, the boys from the Stowe were on a roll with hit after hit.
It was mad. We was getting up at silly times in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, going to airports, literally landing in Germany, 6 in the morning, driving straight to a photo shoot.
How are you? When did you arrive?
About 5:30 this morning.
This morning.
And then we was finishing work at 11 at night. And that was like 3 years, solid. Like, we'd literally run our bodies down to the ground. The flow of the tracks coming out, they were just constant, coming out all the time, every 2 months. But I think Tom kept going, right, they want another £1 million, they want another £1 million. So we could get his 20% cut straight off the top. Everyone was a winner, apart from us. Everyone was earning out of it, apart from us.
The Pet Shop Boys went to #1 with this song in 1985. Now in 1993 and 16, West End Girls, E17.
They might have been exported far and wide, but E17 always came home to Top of the Pops in Elstree.
It was always good Elstree because, like, you had EastEnders there as well. So we'd meet all the EastEnders cast, and obviously we got kind of that connection, East London, EastEnders, E17. We went in Albert Square and got in trouble with the security because we burnt round the square, our mate's BMW at the time. Our mate had a red BMW, and we burnt round the square, let all the alarms off because obviously they weren't filming and we didn't know there was alarms everywhere. Set all the alarms off, security come out, told us off, and we got told off a few times in the 90s.
Oh, you are a naughty boy.
Meanwhile...
Hello, I'm Steve Morris at New Order, and we're on the roof of the Factory Records building, which is the home to Happy Mondays, Joy Division, and of course New Order.
Please give a big welcome, live on stage at the Hacienda in Manchester, New Order! We get along like a house on fire.
In '93, New Order were as vital to the UK music scene as ever.
New Order has always managed to stay a very firm constant in English music. And as much as we've tried to smash that as a group, we've never been able to.
We were never interested in chart success until we got to #1 with the England World Cup song. 93 was, we'd cooled off again as a band, actually. So, New Order-wise, it was very fraught.
The Hacienda was in trouble, a lot of violence, it was still losing loads of money. It was going to go bankrupt at any moment. Factory Records ended up being the same way. And lo and behold, the only thing that could save both operations was for us to do another New Order LP. That would save everything. Now, you must bear in mind that we absolutely hated each other's guts at the time. As a group, we'd never had to write under this pressure, so it wasn't welcome. We got a load of ideas together, and Regret was one of them. And my God, the song took off. You know, the stop-start chord sequence that we had, the da-dam, dam, down, bam. That came together, wonderful bass riff, wonderful guitar riff. I think it's got a great vocal. I don't think Regret could be any more New Order.
Regret had all the signs of a smash hit, and when Top of the Pops came calling, they offered New Order the option to perform by satellite link-up.
We welcome back New Order with a fresh new single for '93. This is Regret.
Where would the Moody Mancunians showcase their edgy single? On the set of the biggest TV show on the planet, of course, Baywatch.
Baywatch. You know, I used to watch it, and I used to enjoy it for all sorts of reasons, mainly the plot and the twists and turns of the intellectual writing. And I remember we had to get up at 6 o'clock one morning, which was probably about half an hour after we'd gone to bed, to go down to Malibu to use the set, which was just a cordoned off part of the beach. David Hasselhoff was there with some of the actors, and we were like pretty much in awe of this. He was wonderful, bigger, larger than life, literally, because he was a big man. And I remember he insisted on having a picture took with us. He was towering over us because we're all round about the same height, 5'5", 5'6" or something. And he went, "Hey, whoa, stop a minute." And we were like, "Oh my God, what's he going to do now?" And then he started digging in the sand until he dug this hole and then stood in the hole so he was the same height as us. And we were like, wow, this is fantastic. And then he filmed his cameo, the combination of getting us, who were going to be on the show anyway, on the set of Baywatch, was far more attractive to the BBC than if we'd have just done it in a studio. And I mean, we were miming. I hope I'm not breaking anyone's bubble by telling them that if they couldn't tell. I mean, it was the only time, insanely, that we actually threw ourselves into rehearsing to mime.
In among the bronzed Baywatch bodies, New Order could not be more British, in what must be the TV highlight of 1993, if not the decade, on Top of the Pops.
Top of the Pops did us a favour because it was literally one of the first videos that MTV started to show was Baywatch, because we weren't playing live. We were miming to the record of all our records. Regret was the biggest selling LP of New Order, and especially in America.
And the pop culture crossover didn't end at the Baywatch beach. It was a thoroughly modern car advert that hijacked the chart, with a tune that had been an early 80s hit for the Bluebells. Then the trailblazers of the new wave scene in Glasgow.
At the time we left school, so David and I left school in 1979, and it was real high unemployment. It was like 3.5 million unemployed, and factories just got in, and a lot of the factories and shipyards up here were closing, so there was no apprenticeships or whatever. So there was no jobs for kids like us.
More than 1 in 10 of Britain's workforce is now out of a job.
And we didn't want to sort of hide and, and say, woe is me. We wanted to make a wage.
He realised there was a scene happening in Glasgow, the kind of post-punk scene.
We started hanging about with the postcard records guys like Orange Juice and Aztec Camera. And we played a lot round about Glasgow and London, supporting them. And they gave us a wee bit of a foot up, as did a band called Altered Images.
We got the front cover of the Melody Maker really early on, and we got the old rehearsal test really early on.
And it wasn't long before the Bluebells were blooming, along with all the other bright young things that were tearing up the charts in the early 80s.
We were playing a gig in Regent's Park, and I'd been in Smash Hits, and I'd mentioned I really fancy that girl in Bananarama, and then to our complete shock, there she was in front of the stage, right, And I remember saying to them afterwards, "Jesse, I'm going to go for her." Right.
I was dating Bobby Bluebell at the time. He used to come down from Glasgow and stay with Bananarama in our council flat that we all shared.
I kind of stayed in London for the next few years, I didn't go back and get my stuff or anything.
London was a cornucopia of creativity, but inspiration for Bobby Bluebell and Siobhan Banana didn't come from the 80s cutting edge. It was deeply personal.
Young at Heart was one of the first songs that I ever wrote. We had a little cassette recorder, and he had an acoustic guitar, and we just started writing the song one afternoon about my mum and dad.
I was from Dublin, which is a shipbuilding area of Glasgow, and she was from Ireland, Dunleary, which is another big port in Dublin. And we were just saying how we were so keen to get away from our parents. We didn't realise how much they'd given up for us. So that was basically what Young at Heart was about. How come I love them now? How come I love them more when all I wanted to do was walk out the door?
We played it first live on a TV programme called The Switch.
Young at heart, the Bluebell.
And it's that slightly kind of Motown kind of feel to it, different kind of phrasing. And that's the one that Bananarama were influenced by. Yeah.
We recorded it as a Northern Soul stomper on the Bananarama first album.
Young at heart. And they made it even more kind of a big production, kind of soul-y.
It was a big production, but it sounded small. It didn't work. It sounded a wee bit linear. And then, so we wanted to do something completely different with it. So it started off like a shuffle on the drums. The bass player played just a sort of jokey country western bass line. It was bump, 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 bump.
Violin was one of the first things we knew we were going to have in it. It is a kind of like very Scottish and Irish thing, which is our roots, you know.
Totally. I think it's really soulful and Scottish and Irish, you know, and the bit Americana obviously in there.
The Bluebells version was so totally different to the Bananarama version. I like that kind of hoedown thing that they brought to it.
The video featured their friend from Altered Images and Gregory's Girl, Claire Grogan, and Young at Heart peaked at number 8 in July 1984.
We meet the Bluebells here, an excellent record. It is called Young at Heart.
We couldn't wait to go on top of the pops. We couldn't wait to sell records. I want my mum to see us. You want your granny to see
your neighbours.
Your neighbours.
The Bluebells broke up a couple of years later, and that was that. Until in 1993...
Claire Grogan's sister was working at the advert company, and they were doing the advert. The advert was kind of made, and it's a great advert, but they're going to use Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You. But that became a big hit for Whitney Houston, so the money for that went into hundreds of thousands of pounds. So they're having a kind of emergency meeting to decide what to do, and Victoria or Claire suggested, you know, this song, Young at Heart, kind of fits it. So they put it onto it, and it kind of did fit it almost exactly, you know, and we were dead cheap.
The ad saw a radiant woman being showered in confetti celebrating her divorce. White top hats sold out across the land, and the Bluebells record was re-released thanks to public demand.
So I went down to Woolworths in Byres Road to buy it, you know, and every person in the queue had Young at Heart. And I remember getting a real tingle, which I have now, and going to a phone box and phoning up Ken to say, Ken, everybody's buying Young at Heart, you know, and we were both like, really excited, you know.
The single raced to number 5 in the midweek chart, and of course there was only one question for the Bluebells. Could they, would they, get the band back together just for Top of the Pops?
Motorcar, here's that song from You Know Where, exclusively back together for a one-off. Welcome the Bluebells, this week's highest new entry at number 5.
But it wasn't a one-off. The song hit the top spot, and the Bluebell Boys were back.
But they gave us a backing tape, and it was 2 bars too long. So we were like, what are we going to do with this 2 bars? So and it was 2 bars with nothing. So we just looked at who else was on the show. So one week it was 2 Unlimited.
2 Unlimited, yeah.
Techno, 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 techno!
And you can see folk in the audience just killing
It
themselves
just
laughing,
freaked
you know?
out, it was great.
Shabba, shabba, shabba!
The record company would tell you the midweek sales, you know, so you kind of knew it's going to be number 1 again next week. So then you could plan your Top of the Pops. You could say, right, next week, let's do a different theme.
And selling bucket loads at number 1, the Bluebells, Young at Heart.
The record company had said, right, this is probably going to be its last week at number 1.
Yeah.
So we just thought, it was almost like Blowout, you know, it's like we just thought, right, let's just do this Fantasia.
There's no business like show business. There's no business I know. Young at heart.
Because we knew that was it. Bye, here we go. Off to pop heaven.
Yeah, it was great.
If the chart was somewhat mercurial this year, life was no more predictable for the grown-ups. John Smith's Labour was stealing a march on the Tories.
I notice that the Prime Minister has been driven to use the confidence factor because he cannot win a vote on any other.
UKIP set up shop and the BNP won its first council seat.
British people are no longer prepared to be treated as second-class citizens in their own country.
And Prime Minister John Major was caught in an unguarded moment.
We want 3 more of the bounce to out there.
But we could leave them to it. The summer belonged to bump and grind.
Well, Carolina sparked this whole dancehall movement. Snow kind of piggybacked in on that. Another great record was Shabba Ranks' Mr. Loverman.
Watch this!
It was Chaka Demus and Pliers with Tease Me.
Tease me, tease me, tease me, baby.
And all of these were going top 5 in the British chart.
And Britain's dancehall hero brought the sounds of Birmingham to the mix.
My parents are from India, so I grew up with the traditional sounds at home, Bhangra, Hindi. And the Bhangra sound with the big drum, it's kind of the sound that comes, it's a celebration sound from the fields, from the Punjab. And you know, I grew up with the sound, but I was more into reggae. When my parents came from India, they went straight to work, and I was dropped off to the nanny next door for 5 years of my life, 8 hours a day, and she was from Jamaica. So early influences of language, of culture. So it wasn't just a like of reggae music, it was an understanding of the culture before the music. And this is how we were speaking on the streets. You know, a bit of reggae, a bit of Indian, a bit of patois, and of course the pop sound of the country that we love so much because I'm proud of being British. So we combined all those flavors into the music.
And 93 was the year the original Bhangra muffin made the mainstream.
The first single that came out was Arranged Marriage. So Arranged Marriage had the traditional Bhangra sound, the reggae sound, and the subject, you know, arranged marriage of it, you know. So again, wasn't really a poppy thing or a popular thing, you know, at the time, especially for the charts. And that was the first time I did Top of the Pops. And I thought, wow. I thought Top of the Pops, you know, I couldn't believe it. And you know, we didn't see Asians in the charts, we didn't see Bhangra in the charts, we didn't hear these sounds. So the communities and people around the world were very, very happy, and I was just overwhelmed to be in the top 20 doing Top of the Pops with my kind of original style of music. So it knocked me for 6. It reflected the communities growing up in, you know, the new generation, because the parents came from India. So we grew up in the country, in the UK, and we wanted to, you know, where do we belong? And the music gave us a belonging. The music gave us a voice. Music gave us identity. It gave us a sound. It gave us freedom to be who we want. And almost, you know, we want to see ourselves on TV. We want to have different challenges from what we hear from our parents. And we felt that we had to do something in the country. And my thing was music. In the summer of 93, I heard so much songs coming out of Jamaica, which had that kind of 60s reggae, kind of twist and shout, Shaka Demus and Pliers, Shaggy or Caroline. I thought, wow, kind of 60s reggae. And I thought, let me have a little take on this.
Fresh back from tour in India, big up for the Dom Raja, Apache Indian.
Boom shakalaka, what the people then want.
Boom shakalaka is just a word that we used to use on the sound systems, like, you know, boom shakalaka, wagwan, wicked, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really mean anything. And I thought the word just came to me. The word came to me when we heard the track, and we just made up a whole song around it, a whole dance around it.
Steve and I, Apache and I, we used to hang out together. And he had a cassette and was scared to play it for me. And he played it, and I remember listening for the first time, and I said, wow, this is a smash, this is amazing. And he was so relieved because he thought I'd be mad, because he was like, oh man, I thought you'd be mad because I nicked your shit. I was like, nah, dude, it was great.
I do remember playing that because a lot of people compared that record to Carolina. And he loved it. I mean, he loved it. It was kind of, and people say, is that Shaggy's song or is it? And it was just, I mean, inspired, but it obviously wasn't a copy. It was a brand new song.
Wine your body, wrinkle your belly.
Boom Shakalaka did so much, I mean, around the world, being in the charts, top 5, #1 in a lot of countries. It went on to, you know, go on 200 TV commercials. It's been on 8 Hollywood movies. Wow. People have enjoyed that song from Japan to Jamaica, Australia to New York, and it's crossed all boundaries and all barriers. Boom Shakalaka, people, make it what you want.
Far from the bootylicious crowd, the record-breaking single that topped the chart in '93 came from a different club scene altogether.
Moonlighting was this soul club in Greek Street, which was so vibrant. I was about 19. I was singing Luther Vandross songs.
And in 1993, Gabrielle's dream of making it big came true.
Well, I was lucky because I met somebody who paid for me to go into a studio. When I went there, they gave me the backing track to Tracy Chapman's Fast Car.
You got a fast car.
And it was then that was like, do you think you can write to this? And so I took it home, didn't do anything. I'd had this book that I used to write in, write my thoughts. I was going through this kind of downtime where people were offering that they could do things for me, and we can make you a singer, we can turn you into a singer. The dream of becoming a singer was just being pulled further and further away from me, and hence why, the opening lines to Dreams, which is move a step closer, you know that I want you. I just went into my book that I had and nicked the lyrics from my poem Dreams and used that.
Move a step closer, you know that I want you.
I literally blagged my day in the studio.
When Dreams was released in June, it made chart history.
So I'd gone in as the highest ever debut song by a debut artist, ever.
Massive amounts of congratulations to South London's Gabrielle. She goes straight into the Guinness Book of Records as the highest new entry ever for a debut single from a debut artist. This is Dreams at #2.
I was #1 the following week, and it blew up in ways I'd never expected.
It was obvious that Gabrielle was a singular talent and was show-stopping in more ways than one.
I had this eye patch, which was its own kind of talking point, but I loved that. People around me, and especially at school, knew that I loved to sing, but the idea of, me, whether I could become famous or not, it wasn't even an aspiration of mine. I tell you for the simple reason that because of the way I looked, having a lazy eyelid, there was nobody on TV, especially women at the time, who had any physical imperfection. An amazing lady called Corinna Pike, a friend of mine had introduced me to her. She was like, right, so Gabrielle, new artist, don't want her to look like an upstart, like some newbie always wearing sunglasses, and everybody's going to ask, who does she think she is? So, because I had a lazy eyelid and I wanted to feel more confident, but we didn't want to wear sunglasses where we blocked out everybody, it was a case of, right, the eye patch. And she came back with all these visuals of these amazing pictures of these amazing women who had, eye patches on. And she was like, well, how do you feel about this? I felt so comfortable, so confident with it. I think that was the first time where, wearing it, I felt empowered.
And do we be together and that you'd be mine?
The moment I put on the eye patch, I felt powerful. All those things how I felt insecure about my eye, they all fell away with me walking into a room. I would basically command you to look at me more than once. It would be a second, third glance, because I know people are like, why has she got an eye patch? But I didn't care. I only ever wore it for one album campaign and that was it. But now, when I look back, I love the image. I mean, when I was wearing the eye patch and the clothes I'd wear, I had an amazing stylist called Jane Howe. My makeup artist at the beginning was Pat McGrath, who's now huge.
Dreams took the top spot for 4 weeks against the whirl of '93's dance-tastic flavour and power pop. Gabrielle's laid-back confidence and stillness set her apart from the pack.
Anyone who doesn't fit the norm, it's good not to fit the norm, you know what I mean? Be your true self. Why do we all have to fit in that box?
Gabrielle's siren of the silver screen styling was everything at the end of the year. Long, silky slip dresses were a must, as the end of the 1900s took inspo from the end of the 1800s and gave it a millennial twerk.
Breasts are in. Breasts are in. And the bosom is back in 1993. It's unbelievable. Big breasts. We need big, big bosoms. Let's be the way. I'm not going to argue. Kate, I can't. Oh, no. There are no bosoms. Bosoms are out. Bosoms are out in 1993.
And we had our perfect poster girl in Bjork.
But first, last week's number one.
And I would do anything for love.
The end of the year belonged to a colossus of music and a giant of a man.
I would do anything for love.
Meatloaf was number one for 7 weeks with his belting power ballad. But we were referring to this guy. In British Christmas tradition, the race to secure the Christmas number one had some serious contenders.
We definitely wanted to do a Christmas single. We wrote one. I wrote the lyrics because I was born Christmas Day. It's my birthday. And we got Tim Burgess from the Charlatans, who was like a friend of ours, to do it as a duet with Sarah.
And the angelic Take That had the heartstring strumming Babe. And then there was this.
I don't think we really thought we were going to compete with Mr. Blobby.
Mr. Blobby started as a celebrity stunt on Noel's house party, but by the end of 1993, he was channeling his punk rock influences to take on Take That in a do-or-die bid for Christmas number one.
Blobby, Mr. Blobby. Oh, Blobby, 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 oh, Blobby, Blob.
Mr. Blobby peaked early, taking the top spot in the first week of December, before victory was snatched by the Fab Five. Or was it? A resurgence in sales in the week before Christmas and...
Christmas number one. Bah.
Mr. Blobby got to number one. He was smashing it at the time, I must admit. He was getting a lot of exposure.
I am alongside, like I say, some of the great bands of the 90s and Mr. Blobby.
And that about sums up the year. Next time...
Welcome to Top of the Pops, I'm Kylie Minogue.
Superstars take over. And the Radio 1 DJs return.
This week's a big Top of the Pops musical exclusive.
It's all about to kick off as Top of the Pops turns 30 in 1994.